At BBC 5 Live on Twitter. Nicholas is in Norwich. Dave's in Cheltenham. Don't forget that number you need, 0500 909 693. We're going to start with you, Nicholas, in Norwich.
Oh, hi there. Yeah, how's things? All right?
Doing all right.
Good. Yeah, well, I think the issue that needs to be discussed, I don't think is discussed enough, is not the economic issues or Britain's place in the world. It's for people who live, particularly in England, and the quality of life they're going to have to expect over the next quarter of a century if we remain in Europe, and I'll tell you for why. Immigration is a good thing, and we've had plenty of immigration over the last 10 years. But one of the things that's happening in England is that because the infrastructure in this country is so bad and has been for pretty much 50 years, the pressures, the environmental pressures on people in this country are going to get worse and worse and worse. And I think a break on any immigration in this country is necessary just for 10 years so that we can catch up, and actually for the people in England to catch up culturally and socially with what's going on around them. Because I'm fear if that's not the case, we will be led by Mr. Balls and Mr. Cameron and all the rest of the meretricious upper-class establishment into a country of probably 75 to 80 million people by the middle of this century.
So you say breaking immigration for 10 years, which isn't going to happen, is it?
Yes, and I think the
but
only
what
way
would that achieve? What do you think that would achieve?
Well, I think we could catch up. I think we could catch up with our infrastructure. We could catch up economically. But most importantly, instead of worrying about the economy, people can breathe and work out where this country's going to be in 10 to 15 years, rather than at the moment being pushed into a country which essentially, like I say, the people who the stay-ins, the Ed Balls, the David Camerons, who essentially want this country to be an entrepot economy of probably 100 million people by the end of the century on the northwest of Europe. Now, if you want to live in Hong Kong, that's great, but we need to discuss that, not just be led down the path. And I fear that's what's happening, and that's the real concern from people, I think, around the country. What sort of a country do we want to live in the future? And that strategic
But has the country not already changed, and do you not like the...
No, you misunderstand. You have to ask yourself, you live in Northern Ireland or live in London? I'm not sure.
Well, I live in Northern Ireland, basically,
right, okay. Well,
basically 3.5 days a week, and I live in Manchester the other 3 days a week.
Right. Well, you have a lot of open spaces in Northern Ireland, and there's some open spaces around Manchester still. But in parts of England, particularly southern England, those open spaces are disappearing, and they're disappearing really quickly. And I fear that if the stay-ins get their way, they will see that as a green light for yet more building and more infrastructure and more people in southern and eastern England, and we will be left with a country that we will just not recognise.
Stay there, Nicholas. Dave in Cheltenham, do you agree with them?
Nick, who's going to pluck all your turkeys, mate, if we don't have any immigrants coming over here? That's the first point. I shouldn't have made that point. That's something I wasn't going to say. I was going to say this. Mr. Cameron, you're in Europe, begging Europe to keep us in there. Why are we asking Europe what we can do? We should be telling Europe, here's what we're doing, keep us or throw us out.
Well, it's called negotiation, Dave, isn't it?
Well, yeah, okay. But, we shouldn't be doing that. But let me balance this up, please. I was in hospital with my father tonight. All the nurses and the people there were all from Europe doing a fantastic job. And I have to say, where would we be without them? Because all our nurses are in Australia.
That's a fair question, Nicholas, isn't it? You look at the NHS, look at the... This is meretricious rubbish that people talk on this subject. Well, it's reality.
It's a black and white issue. Nobody's saying that people coming from abroad to this country is a bad thing. On the contrary, it's a good thing. And people have been coming to this country for 40,000 years, right? That's not the problem. The problem is the amount and the time and the space that's been allowed for people to live and breathe in that in the short
Listen to Dave, Nicholas. He's trying to talk to you.
We haven't been given a choice. The strategy is being set out behind our backs.
Nicholas, listen to Dave. Give him a chance. He's trying to talk to you.
Give him a chance. Now, Nicholas, please. I work in the caring profession. Last week, we went to interview 8 people, 2 from Europe and 6 from Britain. The 2 Europeans turned up, the 6 Britons didn't. Now, listen,
I don't see that's got anything to do with it, my son.
Well, you've got nothing to do with it. The Daily Mirror said this morning, Nicholas, that there are 400,000 jobs taken over by foreign nationals. Sorry, mate, where's that coming in then? British people are lazy. Let's get it right. Let's have it right, Nicholas. Come on. they're saying that people from abroad shouldn't get income benefits from employment benefits for 4 years. Exactly right.
Story, mate.
Now listen, give me 1 minute.
Hold on. We want to be able to hear you both.
People.
Yeah, well, try and get your story straight before you come on the air.
Hang on, Nicholas.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not interested in who comes into the country or what colour they are or where they're from. What I'm talking to you about, if you try and listen and understand, is people are finding that the pressure in parts of this country on the infrastructure and on the aesthetics and the environment are so bad. Take, for example, just environmental issues, not CO2, but the destruction of wildlife in this country. We've lost 90% of our butterflies. We've lost hundreds and hundreds.
Well, you're not going to start putting down butterfly loss to immigrants too, are you?
Well, do you not? Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you don't care because you're not really concerned about things like that, are you, Stephen?
Sorry, Nicholas?
You're not concerned about the environment. You only talk about the environment when it's meretricious.
Well, of course I'm concerned about the environment, Nicholas. You can maybe blame immigrants with some validity on some things. You can't blame them for... Well, you did.
You want to frame it in the way you want to frame it. And of course you do, because you work for the BBC and that's your mantra. I'm not saying it's about immigrants at all. I'm saying that the pressure on population in this country is destroying the environment in England. I'm saying that's happening, and it is happening.
And you're linking that...
If you don't believe me, ask David Attenborough.
What do you do for a living, Nicholas?
David Attenborough works for the BBC. Ask him.
All right. Nicholas, nice to talk to you tonight, Dave. Thank you.